What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Fantasy Files Reacts. Tonight, then share my thoughts on the episode. Before we get into it, though, it would help the channel a lot if you would hit those like and subscribe buttons. And if you want, you can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy. If you don't need the recap, I'll be adding timestamps down below so you can skip right past it. I tried to keep most of my personal opinions and thoughts for the second part of this video. So if you don't need the recap, you won't miss much by skipping past it. Okay, so episode 2 starts out with Dexter and Harrison at the table having a super awkward conversation, mostly thanks to Dexter being super awkward himself. Harrison tells Dexter that Hannah died 2 years ago from cancer, and he's been bouncing around foster care homes ever since. He tracked Dexter down through Instagram, of all things, after going through the Oregon logging town that we see at the end of season 8. Dexter tells Harrison he will tell him the full story in the morning. Right after this, Dexter hears knocking on the window, and it's fucking scary ghost Deb, who breaks through the window to berate him about not only killing someone, but letting his son live there, who he will surely screw up as well. She calls him a emotionally handicapped crazy fuck. And this scene is intense because she shoves a bullet literally down his throat. Then we see Lily, the homeless girl from the last episode. It looks like someone has brought her to a hotel room or something. And throughout the episode, we learn that she is locked inside with a camera watching her that says, "You're already dead" on the side of it. This is obviously, I think, either Edward, the billionaire oil baron guy, or the dad of Matt Caldwell. And sorry, I kept calling him the rich kid in the last episode. So in the morning, Dexter realizes he has a blood trail going from his house all the way out to the woods where he hit Matt with the gun, right as police show up looking for Matt. Somewhat luckily, it's Dexter's girlfriend who shows up first, and she is just wanting to use his cabin as a base camp for the search. When Angela goes to walk inside Dexter's house, she meets Harrison for the first time, who Dexter has not told her about, and she is not very happy. Harrison smoothly lies to Angela, telling her that Rita had died only very recently, so now he is living with his dad. This will be important because it comes up later in the episode. Dexter and Harrison decide to go look in the woods so that Dexter, unknowingly to Harrison, can cover his trail. And he plants one of Matt's gloves out by the highway to make it look like he killed a white buck on native property and ran to escape the penalty. Deb is mocking him and yelling at him the whole way as Dexter Windexes a rock with blood on it, which was very funny. When the police show up, they find the glove, leading them closer to the conclusion that Matt ran away. Angela suggests that Harrison goes out on the search with the high school kids so that he can meet people his own age, which is where he meets the love interest, Audrey, Angela's daughter, and goes out to the abandoned summer camp where Harrison uses a lockpick on the door and everyone smokes pot. Harrison says that he's been clean from a nasty drug habit for a couple of years, which is super interesting. When he goes to get firewood, the kids go through his backpack until Audrey tells them to stop. The only thing they found were drawings in his bag. Harrison tells everyone that he was recently living with his stepmom who died of cancer, as well as his biological mom who died when he was younger. Dexter matches the bullet that was found inside the deer, showing the police it was bought by Matt from his store. Dexter and Angela talk about Harrison and start to smooth things over, and Angela tells him that now they can share the parenting part of their lives. Dexter and everyone are back at his cabin, and we hear his inner monologue talking about hiding in plain sight in front of the police, which was a cool callback to the original show. The cops decide to give up the search, believing that Matt ran away, and we see a rift between Angela and Audrey, with Iris being mentioned once again. Matt's dad shows up and says that Matt wouldn't run away, that he would call his father for help, and convinces the town to keep up the search through the night. Dexter and Harrison finally have their talk, and Harrison shows Dexter his own written letter to Hannah that says, "Reach out to me if Harrison ever shows any dark tendencies." Dexter explains that it's not anything that's wrong with Harrison, but he was worried that his own darkness would rub off on Harrison. Dexter does not, however, admit to being a serial killer. Dexter tells Harrison that he regrets leaving him and Hannah, and that he never thought that Harrison would be left alone, that he would have been there if he had known that Harrison would end up in foster care. Kurt Caldwell, Matt's dad, meets Harrison and Dexter and says, "I'll find him if it's the last thing I do. No stone will go unturned." Dexter thinks, well, some stones will go unturned, and we get a camera shot lowering beneath the fire pit to where the body is buried deep below ground in bags with the rifle. So that's where the episode ends. We also get some scenes for next week's episode, which show Harrison getting enrolled in school and taking like placement tests. And then we see like the search for Matt continuing. So for this episode, the following thoughts are in no real particular order. They're vaguely going from the beginning of the episode to the end. And first of all, this episode was really fantastic. I don't think I liked it as much as the first one, but it did a really good job of expanding the story and giving us a good taste of what we can expect from the show. A couple of the lines of dialogue that I liked right from the beginning is when Dexter and Harrison are talking in that first scene, and he's talking about how he was like tracking Dexter down. And he asks him, he's like, "Do you know how many Jim Lindsays there are on the internet?" And now we have Dexter's like classic inner monologue again. It was absent for most of that first episode, but we have it all the way throughout this whole episode. And so Dexter's thinking like that's kind of the point, and it's just a reminder of yeah, everything Dexter does, he does on purpose. Even choosing his name, Jim Lindsay, it's very calculated, and I'm sure he looked into that name to make sure it was like a very popular name. And then Harrison asks, "What happened to Dexter Morgan?" And in Dexter's inner monologue, he says, "He killed dozens of people, got your mother and your aunt killed too." And so it's just kind of like this ongoing. I forgot how much I love the like inner monologue, and just he's constantly answering questions on the inside, and then saying something else on the outside. So what I'm really liking about this season so far is the inclusion of Deb as a ghost. And in the original series, we get Harry as kind of this ghost that he sees or thinks back to. And he's always very like consoling and supportive. Like he wants to help his son and keep his son out of a like electric chair or whatever. But Deb is not that way. She is vicious and she is scary as fuck. she is yelling at him the entire episode. Like there are some really, really intense scenes with her. And I just really, really love that addition to this season. I think it was a very smart choice. Especially instead of having her just being this ghost that helps him and like, is trying to help him get away with things. She's telling him like, you're fucked. Like you are absolutely screwed. Like you should be put in prison. Like you should go somewhere far away. Like you should kill yourself. Like all these horrible things that she's saying to him, because she hates this side of him. And even though he's like, oh, it's like a one-time thing, like I'm trying to work past it, she has no patience for that. And so I think that's such an interesting addition to this season. Something that's kind of interesting is Angela actually looks a lot like Deb in some way. She's got like a very similar body type, almost the exact same hair, has the same career, somewhat similar personality. She's like the better side of Deb, which is kind of odd given that we had gotten that weird Deb and Dexter, like somewhat romantic storyline near the end of the show's original run. That was kind of an odd thing there at the end, but I'm wondering if they're trying to show us the kind of women that Dexter is interested in, given Angela and Deb, given that there was like that kind of that weird romantic tension between them at the end of the show, throwing Angela in there as kind of a nod to that, maybe. So, as I mentioned earlier, Harrison tells Angela that Rita had died recently, which is why he's now in Iron Lake. And so, she's under the impression that he had been living with his biological mom, and then she died, and he was immediately sent over to live with Dexter, right? But then later on in the episode, he tells Angela's daughter that he was living with his stepmom and that his biological mom had died when he was really young, and that his stepmom had died recently. And so there is bound to be some fallout from this, and I think that's what's going to make everything come crashing down, because I feel like that's a pretty big lie that Angela is not going to take too well. I don't know, he was smart enough to lie the first time in front of Angela. I don't know why he let it slip with her daughter. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the fallout from that. Matter of fact, in that scene when he tells Angela that Rita had died recently, Dexter, when she leaves, Dexter is like, "Oh, thanks for covering for me," or whatever. And Harrison says, "I didn't do it for you. I just didn't want a cop all up in my business." And Dexter's inner monologue goes, "Huh, like father, like son." And I thought that was a pretty funny moment. I'm wondering how many other similarities we will see between Harrison and Dexter. Also, this episode is like prime Dexter. This is like what we expect from Dexter. We're seeing him work plans within plans, and always having to hurry up to cover his little mistakes here and there, and to stay one step ahead of the police. There's plenty of really close calls, and Dexter lying through his teeth the whole way. It really does demonstrate how everything goes to shit really, really fast once he's let his dark passenger loose, which is actually a really interesting parallel to things like drug use, which it appears that Harrison has. It appears that it's been a big part of Harrison's life. And so I'm wondering if they will draw some parallels there. So Dexter is worried when he sees one of the cops flying a drone. And it made me think, since, 10 years ago or whatever, technology has come quite a long way just in those 10 years since the original show, even more so since the beginning of the original show. And so I wonder how many other new tech Dexter is going to have to work around. I'm sure, because I didn't even think about what a difference a drone would be, or like better, there's all sorts of better like recording devices and stuff now. I can't wait to see like what he has to deal with in this season that he hasn't had to deal with before. Not only that, but he is 10 years out of practice, because before he was killing on a regular basis and he was very skilled at what he did. And we're already seeing him make a ton of mistakes. So, I'm interested to see what he has to work around in this season that he didn't have to before. So there's a slight altercation with the Native Americans. And I kind of wonder how that will play into the larger storyline. There seems to be a rift between the natives and the police department of Iron Lake. He mentions a girl that went missing. It sounded like a Native American girl that went missing, that the cops said was a runaway and would come back. And then he says to Angela, after Iris, you of all people should know. And so then it kind of brings up this question of who is Iris? And this may have been something that I missed in the first episode, but I don't think so, because it's only like alluded to a couple times in this episode. Angela tells him things are different now, which suggests that the police department used to be maybe slacking a bit, and maybe she tightened things up when she became police chief. So I'm definitely expecting some bad blood between the Native Americans and the police department. I guarantee that's going to play into the larger storyline here. And now that I think about it, the missing Native girl might have been one of the victims of, this season's big bad, because we see this guy who's got Lily trapped in this hotel room looking place. And so it makes you wonder if he's the reason why the Native girl went missing, or if Iris was, Angela's daughter that went missing. Maybe he's the reason for that as well. Also, I'm wondering if I think it's just so ingrained in Dexter's nature to kind of have tabs on everybody, or to be like, you know, not at the center of everything, but he has like a good network, and he's always working very closely with the police so that he can kind of keep tabs on everything that's going on. And so even though he's not killing anymore, I'm like, is it just a coincidence that he's dating a police chief? Or is that just kind of ingrained in him that he needs to be close with the police so that he can know like what's going on at any given time? He knows ahead of time if he needs to like run or whatever. And so I wonder if him dating Angela is part of that. So, especially in this episode, we see Dexter have multiple kind of conversations in his head, both with himself and with Deb. And he's very adamant about being so concerned about Harrison and making things right with him and keeping him safe. And I'm wondering if you guys think that that is a little out of character for him. I think up until now, he's been so kind of adamant about like no connections, no like he wants to keep Harrison safe by him not being with him. Um, and so I feel like I'm a little too far removed from the original show to make an informed decision on whether I think it's out of character for him because I can't remember if he was that way in the original show, but it seems a little impulsive and it seems a little shoehorned a little bit. I'm actually really surprised that at the end of the first episode, he didn't just continue to let Harrison go and then Harrison would come back later in the season and it would be this thing. What I kind of wanted to see was over the course of the season, Harrison decides to stay in Iron Lake, even if Dexter won't admit who he is. And then little by little, Harrison wears him down. And maybe they get into some like life or death situation with each other where like or not life or death but like Harrison like walks in on him like killing somebody or moving a body or something and then it becomes like this whole thing where Dexter has to like tell him who he is. And I still think that something like that is going to happen. But I do think it's a little weird that immediately Dexter was like, okay, like, yeah, I'm taking my son back and he's going to live with me. Something I thought was kind of interesting was what what were the drawings in Harrison's bag? And will it come up later? Will they have some sort of importance? Um, is he just an artist, or did they have some sort of other meaning? Were they drawings of people he knew? Um, we really don't know a lot about him. We don't know if he's like creepy based like we don't know if he's got like this some sort of dark passenger inside him. And so I'm kind of taking all these little clues and all these little things and probably making too much out of it. But I'm really interested to know more about him and kind of where he's been the past 10 years, even though I mean he kind of told us, but like really like where like what he's been doing. I want to know more about his like drug addiction and stuff like that and see kind of how that played into his life. We see him kind of jimmy a lock open, and Audrey is like, mom is really not gonna like you. The Dexter Harrison heart to heart at the end was definitely my favorite scene. Dexter is worried that he is a bad person and doesn't want that to rub off on Harrison. And Harrison doesn't understand. He tells Dexter that he has very fond memories of him when he was a child and doesn't remember Dexter being a bad person at all. He says, the worst thing you ever did was leave me. And this was a heartbreaking scene. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be left by a parent when you were 5, and just kind of have these vague memories of them from when you were really young. I think that would be that is absolutely heart wrenching. And this scene definitely made me tear up both times I watched it. And then Deb at the end, when everything is kind of, it seems like everything is going to work out. Dexter's girlfriend is happy with him again. He brings her some tea, and the search is winding down and everything. And Deb pops up behind him, and she says, "You don't have to enjoy the win so much, you smug fuck." And God, she is so intense this whole episode. Every single time she pops up, it makes the scene 10 times more interesting. She's actually in this quite a bit, which I was not expecting. She pops up a lot during this episode. Dexter has this body buried beneath the fire pit. I guess what I don't understand is why wouldn't he find somewhere else to put it? I mean, it doesn't seem like anyone would find it underneath the fire pit, but like it's like right there. Like it's probably at least 6 or so feet underground. But really, he should have totally gotten rid of it. I mean, he's had to have seen Breaking Bad by this point in the last 10 years. Like why doesn't he just dissolve the body? Um, yeah, I don't know. How do you guys think they will find the body, or will they find the body at all? Because not all of Dexter's bodies were found from what I remember of the original show. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see how that works out. He put the gun down there too. So I think I would bet money that they're gonna find it with like a metal detector or something. And they just have like a metal detector over the spot. It's just beeping like crazy, and they dig up Matt in like 5 different bags. Um, yeah, something bad is gonna happen with that. He needs to get rid of that body. How was he getting rid of the bodies by the end of the show? Because I remember he was throwing them in the ocean or whatever for a long time, but then he stopped doing that. And I can't remember how he was getting rid of the other bodies that he did later in the show. I'm gonna have to go back and watch. Also, how has Dexter or Jim Lindsay not how has Jim Lindsay not been identified as Dexter? I think like I said, it's been a long time since I've watched the original show, but weren't the police fully aware of who Dexter was and actively searching for him? If Harrison can find him on Instagram, I would think that others could as well, especially because he hasn't like changed his appearance in any way. There hasn't been, not enough has really changed for people to like not recognize him if there's like a nationwide search for him or something. And I don't think it's at that level of a search, but it was a big deal in Miami, I think. So it was definitely on the news. Um, so yeah, I wonder why that hasn't really caught up to him yet. I would understand if like when he was out in that logging town and he had the big beard, and he was living like super isolated in a cabin. But he's living in New York now and in a small town, but regardless, New York. And which, is just on the other corner from Florida, and not to mention that he has a girlfriend. He's more connected with this town. He knows everybody in the town, and so I feel like that would be a lot more opportunity for him to get noticed by someone who had seen the news back then. Um, and so I'm really curious if his past will catch up with him, like if those things will come back to bite him. He really should have gotten out of the country. He really should have just left the country. And so my biggest question is, will besides like what's going to happen to Dexter, I think Dexter is going to need to tell Harrison about his past, or what I bet will happen, like I said earlier, what I bet will happen is Harrison will walk in on him doing something stupid. Harrison will walk in on him killing somebody, or he'll walk in on him when like maybe Dexter tries to move the body from underneath the fire pit to somewhere else, and Harrison like sees it. Something is going to happen where Harrison finds out. I guarantee it. I will bet money on it. I probably wouldn't bet money on Harrison showing dark tendencies of his own. I think it's very possible, but it's really 50-50, I think. I think what they might do is Harrison's dark tendencies would be like his drug problems. I think that's what's going to be the dark part of him. So, what did you guys think of this episode? All in all, I thought it was a fantastic episode. I was grinning the whole time because it's just so special. It feels like the Dexter that I remember it feels like the show that I was absolutely in love with a, new, modern, updated lens, literally and figuratively, like new camera techniques, as well as super high quality visuals, like obviously new cameras and stuff. So everything looks very modern. Yeah, everything in this episode was absolutely spot on. It's exactly what I'm looking for in a Dexter show. And I'm just super excited for the rest of the season. I'm so stoked for it. I'm gonna be super sad when it's over. I have seen a couple rumors, whether they're unfounded or not, about having a season 2, which would be really awesome. But I just want them to keep the story really tight and have a really, really strong ending. But I will absolutely watch this show as long as it goes on for. Well, I am going to wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Feel free to check out the rest of the channel if you like fantasy book discussions and reviews, and other fantasy related topics. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really does help us out a lot. And don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy to keep up with our content there and see kind of live tweet reactions as we go through various books and movies and TV shows. Yeah, until next time, don't let your dark passenger out. It's not a good idea.